Today, we are checking to see what is the fastest SSD. So we're doing something a little different today. We usually don't check NVMe drives on this channel, but there are a couple of new contenders, and we got to see what the fastest is. We always have to know what's the fastest. Now this one here is a 4 terabyte. This is going to be for a future video. We're going to do a battle of the 4 terabytes. So make sure you subscribe to check that one out later. But for this video, we're going to be comparing these 3 bad boys. Now what's the difference between these 3 drives? A lot. These things couldn't be more different from each other. Now let me explain. Let's start with the bad boy right here, the Optane. Now Optane was kind of Intel's attempted solution at a NAND replacement / memory replacement. What I mean by that is if you take a normal SSD, these things are infinitely slower than system RAM. Now what Intel tried to do with Optane here, they tried to make a system that was persistent. So when you turned the PC or server off, you wouldn't lose all the data like you would with RAM. But then they also tried to make it to have as little latency as possible. So you can kind of think of Optane as kind of like a bastard child between NAND and system memory. It's kind of right in between there. Now Optane is no longer in production by Intel anymore. Intel axed that entire segment. My theory is that it was just way too damn expensive. Like, I'll leave affiliate links to all these products down below, and you're gonna find that the Optane is more expensive than these 2 drives over here. And this is Gen 3. If you want the Gen 4 version of Optane, it's like $3,000 for 1 terabyte. It's ludicrous. Optane was never something meant for the consumer market, right? So even if you look at the connector here, that's not a SATA connector and that's not a PCI Express connector, right? This connector here is actually a U.2 connector. So with the 1.5 terabyte model here, you actually have to buy a separate converter cable to make it work with your PC. I will leave an affiliate link for that down below as well, in case this does end up on top. Now, before I said that this drive was Gen 3, it is. The maximum throughput of this drive is very low, which if you're transferring extremely large files, not going to be optimal, right? But what if gaming doesn't care about maximum throughput? What if gaming cares about latency? And that's why we have this bad boy on test today. So out of the 3, this is going to be the lowest latency with the lowest maximum bandwidth. Now, the 2 biggest pros to the Optane, because this technology was meant for servers, the read-write lifespan, or the endurance of the drive, this thing is basically going to last you forever, and it's never going to wear out. Now, the second thing is this drive will not slow down no matter how full it gets. So even though this thing is a 1.5 terabyte, you can fill that entire thing up, and it will never slow down. On the NAND-based SSDs, when you get past about 85% fullness, they really start slowing down because there's less room for the controllers to move the files around and have that space available to cache data. Now the 990 Pro here, Samsung is using their own proprietary controller, and this one is supposed to have the lowest latency out of the M.2 NVMe flash-based SSDs. Now the 990 Pro is a Gen 4 NVMe drive, and it says right here, max read speed 7450 megabytes a second. So double the throughput of the Optane. Now this guy over here is the new kid on the block from Crucial / Micron. This is a Gen 5 NVMe. Supposedly, this is the fastest NVMe drive on the market right now. This one is actually 14,500 megabytes a second, so double the 990 Pro. Again, we don't know if games actually even care about maximum bandwidth. So Crucial actually sent me this drive to test out against these 2. Here was the entire conversation. Hey Jufus, want to benchmark some shit? Sure. Cool, we got some NVMe drives on the way. And that was the entire conversation. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate brands that are actually like that. Some of these other brands, man, they're like, so we just want to know what you're going to say before we send over this $80 product. So no matter what the results are today, just go show some love to our boys over at Micron for just being normal and chill. So they actually sent over the second drive too, the 4 terabyte one. And because Crucial was so generous in sending these over and giving no hassle and no talking points whatsoever, I'm going to give these away in the Discord after these videos are done. Now, even though Crucial sent this drive over for testing, these 2 drives were provided by the PC Optimization Masterclass. Let me tell you, there are 2 types of tech channels. There are the ones that do what they're told for a $90 product, and there are those that are independent like this one. Now, in the last video, I just mentioned the course for like 5 seconds, and I've already had over 100 signups. This is literally life-changing money, guys. This channel will be able to remain independent forever, and it's all thanks to everyone that pre-ordered that course. Now, the course is launching in like 9 days or whatever, whenever this video goes up. But until that course launches, the price will remain at $299 with free Discord access. Let me tell you though, man, that course is so powerful. It has the potential to basically convert an entire generation of console bros into PC experts. So if you want to support the channel and become a PC optimization god, head on over to framechasers.org/education. If you go through that course, you will never have to ask anybody for help with PCs ever again. So how are we going to test these? Now, I'm actually curious myself how these things perform in real world scenarios. So we'll start it off by running like Crystal Disk Mark. Even though that benchmark is completely useless, at least it'll give us a barometer of these 3 SSDs and just make sure everything's running properly. So to make the test fair, I'm going to take the Optane first. I'm going to install a fresh Windows on it. I'm going to install all the benchmarking software and all the games I want to test. And then once I have this thing finished, I'll do a nice cleanup on it. And then I will take a disk image of this one and image it over, kind of like a cloning, if you will, clone it over to these 2. So all 3 of them are the exact same, so that when we load up the games, they will all be in the exact same state for when we need to time it. And then we'll do like 3D Mark storage test. We'll time a couple of game loadings. And then I also want to check direct storage. Now, as far as I know, Ratchet and Clank and Forspoken are the only 2 games that support direct storage. And I don't know how to benchmark those games, but I did find some random-ass app from some random-ass dude online where it has a synthetic direct storage benchmark. So we're going to use that too. And then hopefully that will give us a theoretical future vision into more direct storage games and which one you should invest in to be kind of future-proof. Now for the test platform, we are going to be using a 14900K, an Intel platform. And the reason why is because Intel platforms are just way snappier in Windows, and Ryzen is too random in its performance, and I don't want anything to skew the results. So when I double click on that game, I need it to launch at the exact same time on all 3 of these SSDs to keep the count consistent. Now, that's not to say we can't do this exact same test on an AMD platform in a future video. If you'd like to see that, leave a comment down below. Hell, maybe putting Optane on an AMD platform is the way to go because it has the lowest latency. Now, the RTX 5000 series is right on the horizon, and let's hope it's Gen 5. Now, if the RTX 5000 is Gen 5, then we only need 8 of those lanes. So should you buy a Gen 5 NVMe for your Intel platform, knowing that in the future you're future-proofed? There's a lot of future-proofing questions in this video. So with that out of the way, I'm gonna go image these 3 drives, get them ready, and let's bring out the stopwatch. Before we get started, I'm running the T705 on a second run, and the speed got cut by like 1.5 gigabytes, and the temperature of the drive is actually 66 Celsius. So now and it's like burning my finger. That's insane. Holy shit. So now I see why they sent me the one with the actual heatsink. Yeah. So she's hitting 81 Celsius, man. Okay, so what I'm gonna do instead to try and get it to stop throttling here and give this thing its best chance, I don't have an NVMe water cooler, but let's try putting it on the Hyper M.2 card. This thing is a solid piece of, I don't know, copper, I think, maybe steel. This thing is heavy as shit, so this should be able to keep that one NVMe drive cool. Let's find out. Now, one big advantage to the Optane, again, is it has its own enclosure, right? So you put this on, like, the back of the case or something, and the heat from the drive isn't going to heat up the rest of your motherboard, right? All right, I've got it in the Hyper M.2 card now. Let's run Crystal Disk Mark twice, and then check the temperature. See if this fixes it. Yeah, see, the initial temperature spike only went to 48, not whatever the hell it was before, 70, whatever, right? So this, let's see if it's warm. Oh, yeah, that's much better. Yeah, there's just way more copper. I mean, obviously. Okay, bonus round. Now, the biggest problem with the 905p is its sequential read and write. It's like 2500 megahertz, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to RAID 0 two of them together, and let's see if that fixes the problem. Now, here's the issue with that. Now, when you do RAID 2 drives together, it does increase the latency by a little bit, depending on if you're using CPU lanes or even worse, chipset lanes. So we're gonna put these on the CPU lanes to try and mitigate that latency increase as much as possible, but there's always gonna be like overhead scheduling lag, right? So here's kind of how I ran it. I have one of them going in the Gen 5 slot on the Apex, and then one of them going into the Gen 4 slot on the Apex. Both of these are going to the CPU lanes. Then I'm going to RAID them from there. Okay, so we're going to start off with the Crystal Disk Mark results here. So top left, this is going to be the Optane single, 905p. Top right here, we got the 990 Pro Gen 4. Bottom left, we have the 905p Optane RAID 0 on the CPU lanes. And then the bottom right, we have the T705. Now, all I know about this is that the sequential numbers, which are these ones, and this one, these are your maximum throughput numbers, right? Now, those are the fancy ones that manufacturers give you on the box, right? But what we're interested in are these numbers, the random reads, right? Now, if you notice, the Optanes are about 3 times faster than the 2 NVMe drives in the random reads, right? So you see here, the single Optane, this one up here, has the lowest latency, right? And then we lost about 50 megabytes a second on the randoms by going RAID. So not too bad, not too bad. Okay, now here are the results for the 3D Mark storage benchmark test. You might have to pause the video here to zoom in to see the fine print to analyze everything, but I'm going to go through it with you here. Now, with this benchmark, you can basically ignore the overall scores here, and let me explain why. Oh yeah, also, on the T705 here, I kept getting this invalid score. Your drive is running too fast error message. I don't know why. But it's like, well, the only thing I can assume here is that people aren't heat sinking their drives properly, so they're probably throttling in this test, right? Or they might be running them on like a 7800X 3D or something that's quite laggy and it's not actually performing as well as it could. But regardless, I digress. This is the score that I got. But the reason why we want to ignore the overall score is because this one right here where it says move game, this is basically just a file transfer test. So if you look at the file transfers of the T705 and the 990p, or the 990 Pro, it's kind of jacks up their score a little bit by having a synthetic file transfer score, right? What we really want to look at are the game loading times here, right? These ones. Now, if you look at the game loading times, the Optanes totally annihilate the NVMe drives. Now, to my surprise, the Optane RAID basically wins in every single benchmark, except for the file transfer. But all the other tasks, the Optane RAID wins. So the latency penalty that we actually incurred by going RAID was trumped by the extra bandwidth that we got in all those benchmarks. So you can actually see here on the T705, on Battlefield 5, it actually beats the single Optane by quite a bit. And then also on the Call of Duty Black Ops 4 load times, it also beats the single Optane. So the T705 is definitely the fastest NVMe drive that you can buy right now. I mean, providing that you do what I did and cool it properly, right? I also don't know if you would get these results if you ran the drive in Gen 4 mode, right? This is Gen 5 mode. And then the 990 Pro basically just loses in everything, which is crazy because that drive, it feels like it just came out. You want to know the craziest thing about all this? The 905p, like Intel's Optane, came out in 2018. So that was 6 years ago. So 6-year-old technology is still beating 2024 technology. That's correct. But that's also why it was so expensive, right? Now, in the next part, all I'm going to do is hit the load button on Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and we're going to see which one loads in first.
But I couldn't fault it. Somehow, we're looking at a 35% performance uplift for the 9700X in Gears 5, simply by using the new 24H2 build.
Oh, and the T705 wins by 1/4 of a second. Use those affiliate links down below to get yourself a T705 so you can compete.
The world contains marvels beyond the dreams of ancient prophets, and terrors more fearsome.
Yeah, I just threw Civilization 6 in there because it has a long-ass loading screen, and if any differences come up, it should come up here. So the 990 Pro wins by 0.1 seconds. Honestly, this is just... Now, this last one is supposed to be that direct storage loading benchmark, but it just seems like a sequential read benchmark to me. So all the seconds loaded all kind of coincide with the bandwidth of all the drives, right? So, like, maybe if you want to be future-proof with... I mean, I don't think it matters, but maybe... So, yeah, I don't know, man. I was expecting more of a difference. Just across the board. I was expecting the Optane to be faster in some things, and the T705 to be faster in other things. All of them, even the RAID, it was all margin of error. So recommendations then, my first recommendation is it's not that serious. Second recommendation would be if you're on a 10900K or a 9900K or any of the Gen 3 platforms, or even like an old HEDT platform like a 10980XE, 9980XE, you can raid those Optanes together and get just as fast performance as current gen tech. For Intel platforms, right now, you're still going to have to sacrifice 8 of those graphics card lanes, and we don't know if RTX 5000 is going to be Gen 5 yet. So I don't want to say go out and buy a T705 and then, you know, shoot myself in the foot later because RTX 5000 is not Gen 5. Now, a couple of differences that I did notice that I couldn't record on camera because it's too subtle. General Windows snappiness is a tad better on the Optane still. Just like opening and closing folders, opening browsers, opening tabs. That shit is snappy, man. The T705 was better in Premiere Pro while I was scrubbing the timeline a little bit. Now, how I confirmed my findings was when I was scrubbing with the Raid and the 990 Pro, the decoder on my graphics card went up to like 93%, but on the T705, it was kissing 100%, right? So across the board, you can literally pick any one of these setups and you're not going to notice a difference. Less than half a second on game load times. So even though all the results were pretty anticlimactic, I wanted to test all these drives for myself to finally confirm yay or nay on what is the fastest. Or hell, apparently if there's no difference at all. But hey, because Crucial sent me over these drives and gave me some cool hardware to give away to my community, I would prefer if you guys just went and just bought their shit just because they were so chill about this whole process. I like supporting companies that support me and my community. So I hope you learned something, guys, because damn, I sure as hell did. But if you didn't learn anything, head on over to framechasers.org/education, and there I guarantee you will learn something in that course. Anyway, guys, as we say in the Frame Chasers community, it's not that serious. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Talk to you later.